She didn't need saving. That scared him more than anything else. She was hired to analyze his empire. She ended up dismantling its weakest link. Serena Winslow doesn't fear power, she studies it. Dante Aleesi doesn't tolerate outsiders until one woman walks into his world and refuses to bend. What begins as a high-stakes security contract spirals into betrayal, violence, and a connection neither of them planned to survive. Strategic, dangerous, uncomfortably intimate. Each week reveals a new breach, a new betrayal, a line crossed that can't be undone. In a world built on loyalty and blood, trust becomes the most dangerous weapon of all. Subscribe and listen weekly to the audiobook series Stories of Silk and Steel, where intelligence is lethal, love is risky, and survival is never accidental.
Welcome back to the channel. It's so good to have you here. If you're ready for a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, please subscribe and give this video a like. And don't forget to leave a comment letting me know which corner of the globe you're listening from today. It's gratifying to see the impact our stories have and how far our stories reach. We have so many more incredible tales planned for you, so be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, which offers a variety of themes for your enjoyment. For now, take a deep breath, settle in, and let's understand how this all started.
The Aaron La Scogliera, a private, upscale Italian restaurant known for its ironclad privacy and impeccable service, is thick with expensive perfume and the promise of power. The establishment, Serena knows, is quietly owned by the Aleesi family, a detail that adds an edge to the atmosphere. Serena Winslow sits across from Mr. Kai Chen and his associate, Mr. Sung Choi. At 5 feet 6 inches, Serena commands attention despite her height as a 38-year-old woman of color. Her tailored navy blue suit, meticulously cut to allow for maximum mobility without sacrificing an inch of professionalism, hints at her practical intensity. Her long blondish-brown curly hair frames a strikingly beautiful face, a look that many mistake for softness or lack of intellectual rigor, a mistake Serena profits from regularly. Mr. Kai Chen, a man in his 50s, is nerdy and unassuming in his appearance, a soft exterior that belies his complex logistical empire. Mr. Sung Choi, in his 30s, sits beside him, subdued and stiff, barely contributing to the conversation. "My business, Ms. Winslow, is entirely legitimate, of course," Chen insists, leaning forward over a barely touched plate of calamari. "But the complexities of the global supply chain, the political instability, I need protection, comprehensive, digital, and physical. I need Winslow Security Solutions." Across the room, Max Carson, the 6-foot-tall second-in-command, is a late-30s former military operator with an observant stillness, nods slightly. He and Serena are linked by discreet comms, a private channel humming beneath the restaurant's classical music. "We are booked for the quarter, Mr. Chen," Serena replies, her tone smooth and professional, "but I will review your materials."
With a nervous glance around the room, Kai Chen slides a sleek metal thumb drive across the polished wooden table. The movement is swift, almost furtive. Mr. Sung Choi visibly tenses, a sudden, almost panicked stiffness running through his shoulders. "Boss, Clock Choi, reads like high anxiety over the data transfer," Max murmurs internally over the comms channel. "Indeed," Serena replies. The moment the drive transfer is complete, the entire energy of the room shifts. The front door of the restaurant opens, and the world's attention narrows to a single figure. Dante Aleesi, 42, olive-skinned, denoting his Mediterranean heritage, tall at 6 feet 2 inches, enters with the effortless magnetism of a man who knows he owns the ground he walks on. Strikingly handsome, with a powerful, muscular build, visible even beneath his immaculate custom-made suit, he moves with a slow, deliberate, yet predatory grace. He is flanked by Marco Lipari, his top enforcer, an attractive man of 38, and Angelo Insolero, Dante's cousin, a handsome man of 40. They are engrossed in what is clearly vital business talk, their heads close, their focus absolute. As Dante pauses to allow a maitre d' to usher them toward a secluded table, his eyes sweep the room, and they lock with Serena's. It is a momentary electric clash of two apex predators. Serena sees the cold, strategic depth in his gaze. Dante sees the unyielding intelligence behind her striking facade. Kaiken's already thin composure crumbles upon seeing Dante. He ducks his head, suddenly desperate to avoid Dante's gaze, the movement awkward and telling. Then, Sung Choi pushes back from the table with a sharp scrape of his chair. "Excuse me," he mumbles, his face pale. "I need the restroom." He moves with a desperate haste that screams panic. Choi is bugging out. Max transmits to Serena. Max discreetly follows Choi from the room. His movement is fluid, and he follows Choi, keeping his distance. Choi hurries past the restrooms, making a direct line for the discreet service exit. "Boss, things are going sideways." Choi skipped the head. Max's voice is sharp in Serena's ear. Serena's composure does not waver, but her gaze snaps to the large picture window overlooking the street. Her eyes, trained on identifying vulnerabilities, skip past the glass and up to the rooftops of the neighboring buildings. There, a glint, unnatural, a scope. She touches her earcom. "Max, I have a visual. Rooftop, 7 o'clock. Sniper," she reports, her voice a low command. She slips her hand beneath her tailored jacket, her fingers wrapping around the familiar cold steel of her Glock 19. "Down! Get down!" Serena's shout is a piercing whip crack in the civilized air. She simultaneously shoves Kai Chen hard, forcing the nervous magnate behind her as she draws her weapon and scans the room for secondary threats. Dante and his men react with blinding speed. They are already on the move, dropping low, their own Sig Sauers appearing in their hands as if by magic. They do not know Serena, so she is simultaneously a source of rescue and a potential threat inside their perimeter. "External threat," Dante barks, his eyes fixed on the window. Serena pivots slightly, indicating the glinting rooftop. "Sniper, far side, aiming now." The bullet, fired from the high-powered rifle, slams into the restaurant window an instant later. The sound is a deafening crack shatter, but the shot does not penetrate. The window, installed to protect Aleesi assets, is bullet-resistant glass. It splinters outward in a spiderweb pattern, showering the floor with dust and tiny opaque fragments, but holding the line. Tables flip, customers scream, diving under the linen-covered wreckage. Dante watches Serena, fascinated, as she uses her body as a shield for Chen, her posture defensive, her gun aimed low, ready to engage any internal threat. Max reappears, dragging a struggling, pale Sung Choi behind him. Choi's hands are now secured with a zip tie. His frantic escape ended abruptly. Marco Lipari, the efficient enforcer, is already barking orders into a wrist-mounted mic. "Secure the perimeter! West side rooftop sweep now!" The order goes out to the men positioned outside the building. Serena holsters her Glock, her eyes still scanning. "Gentlemen, I suggest immediate evac," she says, her voice regaining its low, authoritative pitch, directed at the armed men surrounding Dante. "I am unsure of the primary target, but moving your boss out of a known kill zone seems like a solid course of action." Dante turns his full attention to her, his expression a complex mix of intensity and appraisal. He glances at the shattered window, then at the composed woman who saved his life, and finally to Max, who is restraining the zip-tied Choi. A slight, genuine smile touches the corner of his lips. The fear is absent. Only gratitude and recognition remain. "Grazie, Bella," Dante says, the words slipping out with a distinct Sicilian cadence, the term of endearment laced with the weight of a life saved. "Thank you." The air in the private dining room, moments after the failed assassination, hangs thick with ozone and residual tension. Dante's gaze on Serena is a tactile thing, heavy with recognition. Marco and Angelo stand nearby, their posture rigid, guns holstered but hands ready. Dante dismisses the cleanup crew with a sharp look and addresses Serena. "You are not a bodyguard, Bella," he repeats, his tone shifting from appraisal to proposition. "You analyzed the field, anticipated the shot, and neutralized the trajectory without firing your weapon. This is not defense. This is strategy." Serena meets his gaze. "Actually, Mr. Aleesi, we haven't confirmed whether it was you or my potential client who was the primary target." "Mr. Aleesi? So, you know who I am?" "Of course. I do my homework when providing protective services of any kind, which, incidentally, does sometime require personal protective details. Homework says you own this venue." Dante looks suitably impressed and says so. "Impressive." "Not impressive, efficient. The threat was external, but the intelligence must have been internal. My firm specializes in identifying the points of human failure within security architecture, among other things." She glances at the zip-tied Choi and the visibly uncomfortable Angelo. The weakness is not technical, it's systemic. The interrogation room is Spartan by design. Neutral gray walls, a single table, 2 chairs, no clock. Control lives in the absence of comfort. Serena enters without hurry. Her heels make only the faintest sound. Sung Choi sits already, wrists cuffed, eyes darting toward the corners. He's sweating, though the room is cool. She sets a thin folder on the table, doesn't open it. "Mr. Choi," she says calmly, "you ran for the exit before the first shot. That tells me you knew something was coming. What I want to know is whether you expected the sniper or the result." His throat bobs. I don't know what you're talking about." Serena leans back, folding her arms. "You're lying, but we'll get to that." Behind the mirrored glass, Dante stands motionless, Marco beside him. Dante isn't looking at Choi. He is studying her. Serena's tone never rises. She speaks like a teacher correcting a predictable mistake. "A flash drive is given to me, and immediately afterward, your heart rate spikes. You ask to use the restroom. You bypass the restroom and head for a rear exit, designed for staff evacuation only. Why?" Choi stares at the table. Serena nudges the unopened folder closer to him. "You know what this is?" He swallows. "Police file?" She smiles faintly. "Max's observations, financial forensics, phone logs, every asset you thought you moved quietly." He flinches. Dante's gaze sharpens. Serena rests her hands lightly on the table. "Look at me, Mr. Choi." He does. "You are not a mastermind," she says evenly. "You are a facilitator. Men like you notice where the walls are thin, and you whisper to the ones who like to push." A tear pulls loose, uninvited. "I didn't," he begins. "You didn't shoot," she finishes. "But you did provide timing, and you shared travel patterns, and you panicked when the drive changed hands faster than your friends expected." She leans forward now, voice soft, lethal. "The sniper wasn't after you. He wasn't even after Chen." Silence stretches. Choi whispers, terrified, "Then who?" Serena holds his gaze. "The Aleesi family doesn't miss dinner windows by coincidence. Someone thought weakening the leadership structure would start a chain reaction. Someone close." On the other side of the glass, Dante's jaw tightens. Serena taps the folder once, finally opening it. A single photo slides out. Choi, beside a man tied to one of Angelo's shell companies. "You took protection money," she says. "But then they raised the price. Information, schedules, blind spots. You didn't mean for anyone to die. You just wanted out." He breaks. "I didn't know they'd bring a rifle. I thought..." I thought it was leverage, just noise. Serena nods as if he said something ordinary. Names, she says quietly. Contacts, access points. If you cooperate, I'll recommend leniency. If you hold back, I will hand you to internal channels. Their methods are a bit less documented. Choi looks at the glass, flinches. He believes her. He starts talking. Behind the glass, Marco exhales. Dante watches Serena walk Choi through his confession with precision, not cruelty, not ego, just relentless logic. And a thought forms, unwelcome and undeniable. She is not just valuable, she is dangerous, and she is now inside his world. The office door closes with a soft, final click. Dante removes his suit jacket and drapes it over the back of the chair. He doesn't sit. Marco stands near the desk, still pale, legs stiff, recovering but stubbornly present. What do you think? Marco asks. Dante doesn't answer immediately. He stares at the lights of the city outside. Finally, she does not move like a consultant, he says. She moves like someone trained to anticipate violence, someone who has lived with it long enough to stay calm when it breathes down her neck. Marco grunts. She saved Chen, saved you, controlled Choi without touching him. Yes, Dante replies, which is exactly why I cannot treat her like an unknown variable. He turns. His voice sharpens. Get me everything on Serena Winslow. Marco raises a brow. Everything? Everything, Dante repeats. Military history, contracts, training records, associates, who she trusts, who trusts her, and who would like to see her buried. Marco studies him. You think she's a threat? Dante shakes his head slowly. I think she's a force, and a force that powerful either becomes ally or accelerant. He rests his palms on the desk, and I need to know which before the wrong man figures it out first. Marco nods. He doesn't ask another question. He understands when Dante's protectiveness is instinct, and when it is strategy. This is both. Serena's office is immaculate. Screens glow quietly. 2 coffees sit untouched. 1 long cold. She is working, not frantically, meticulously, lining threat models against human behavior patterns, stitching logic into chaos. Her phone vibrates. Unknown number, secure line. She debates answering for exactly 1 second. She answers. Winslow. The voice that comes through is smooth, deep, unhurried. Serena, this is Dante Aleesi. The smallest pause. Not intimidation. Calculation. What can I do for you, Mr. Aleesi? First, he says, you can tell me whether Choi gave you anything actionable. I'll brief your people, she replies. He chuckles quietly. Serena, you know better. My people are compromised. You said it yourself. She exhales. Fair. What are you requesting? A meeting, he says. Neutral ground, public. My driver will take you. And if I decline? Then I will assume, Dante says politely, that I hired the wrong strategist. She leans back in her chair, one ankle crossing the other. You don't hire strategists. You test them. He smiles. She can hear it. Tonight, he continues. 8 o'clock, private table. We'll discuss containment. She frowns. Where? La Scoliera, he says. The irony is not lost on either of them. That's bold, she replies. That's deliberate, he corrects. Come, eat, talk. No weapons if you can manage it. She laughs once. Low. No promises. He doesn't argue. Serena? Yes? He hesitates, just a fraction. I owe you a better thank you than grazie. The line goes quiet for half a second. Then, we'll see, she says. She hangs up. For a moment she sits very still, eyes on the skyline. Not afraid, not careless either. Intrigued. and that is the thing that unsettles her the most. La Scogliera is quieter tonight, not empty, just controlled. The staff moves with reverent precision. Conversations stay muted, respectful. The room still smells like money, old wine, and secrets. Serena steps through the entrance, wearing a fitted black dress, professional, not provocative, but impossible to ignore. Her curls cascade loosely over one shoulder. She scans the room once, cataloging exits, reflective surfaces, lines of sight. Then she sees him. Dante stands as she approaches, tall, composed, impeccably dressed. There is nothing performative in his courtesy. He simply respects strength when it walks toward him. "Serena," he greets softly. "Dante." They sit. For a moment, the table holds silence, not awkward, but charged. A mutual assessment, predator recognizing predator. A waiter appears, then disappears just as quickly. No interruptions. Dante studies her openly. "You handled Choi with precision," he says. "You dismantled him without humiliation. You left him his dignity, and still took everything." "That wasn't kindness," she replies. "It was efficiency. Broken people aren't reliable sources." His mouth curves. "You read people like battlefields," he says. Their gazes lock. The attraction between them is not loud. It is layered, dangerous, aware. Two minds measuring cost and possibility. "What am I doing here, Dante?" Finally, Dante shifts. Something darker and more honest enters his tone. "There is betrayal in my organization," he says. "Deep, calculated. Someone close to me wants the empire, without my conscience attached." Serena remains still, listening. "You saw the layers," Dante says, his voice dropping into a register that is less boss and more peer. "Faster than my internal team. You took Choi apart without ever raising your voice." Serena doesn't offer a modest smile. She offers a professional nod. "Volume is a distraction. If you're shouting, you aren't listening for the crack in the story." "It tracks with his confession," Dante notes. He watches her, his gaze heavy with a new kind of curiosity. "Which, again, you knew I heard through the feed." She doesn't blink. "So why ask me to repeat it?" "Because hearing the data is not the same as understanding the motive," Dante replies, leaning forward into the light. "My circle sees a traitor. You saw a man who was terrified of something specific. I think you understand the nature of my enemy better than men who have stood beside me for 20 years. Serena absorbs that. She thinks of the streets where a man's posture tells you more than his words, and how the old guard is often blinded by their own loyalty. "Your circle looks for traditional signals, Dante," she says, her voice steady. "I look for the points of human failure. In Compton, if you couldn't read the difference between a man who was greedy and a man who was desperate, you didn't make it to 21. I'm not smarter than your team. I'm just not blinded by your legacy." No dramatics, just thought. He continues, slower now, more honest. "I know this world. I know my men. But the closer a man stands to his castle, the harder it is to see the walls falling." She studies him anew. He has just admitted a weakness, out loud, to someone who isn't his ally. That impresses her. "Distance is a tool," she says. "Most leaders never realize when they've lost it." A pause. Then she adds gently, "And yes, I understand your enemy faster than you do, because I am not inside your loyalty structure, and because my training was built around men like this." He inclines his head, conceding the point without defensiveness. "That," he says, "is why I asked you to dinner instead of sending another man with a briefcase." Now he stops circling. "I do not hire bodyguards. I employ thinkers." Their gazes lock, the words landing with quiet gravity. I want to offer you a contract, he says. Not allegiance, not submission, a partnership of purpose. He takes a breath, deliberate. Silence about what you've seen. Full access to resources, financial, logistical, informational. You work parallel to me, not under me. Your mission, find the cancer, name it, map it, and if necessary, guide the hand that cuts it out. The candle flame flickers between them. Serena leans back slightly, weighing. Strategic asset, she repeats. That sounds clinical, like you expect not to bleed. His mouth curves faintly. On the contrary, Kara, he says. It means I already know this will cost me something. She watches him, really watches him. Not the suits, not the charm, the man. You understand your limitation, she says quietly. Most men in your position would rather burn down their empire than admit that. And you respect that, he replies, not asking. She doesn't deny it, but she also doesn't smile. My terms, she says. If I take this, I operate independently. I report truth, even if you hate it. I don't clean messes to make you look clever. Yes, he says without hesitation. Let me be clear, she says. If I agree, I work my way. No lies, no half-truths. If your people get in my way, I move them. If you get in my way, I will tell you, directly. He nods once. Agreed. And if your traitor turns out to be blood? His gaze hardens, not cruelly. Then blood does not excuse infection. They hold each other's eyes for a long beat. Not adversaries, not allies. Something more dangerous. Two tacticians deciding whether to trust. She finally lifts her glass. Not a toast, just acknowledgement of a line crossed. I haven't agreed, she reminds him. I know, he says softly. And I don't take contracts because men are charming. He smiles, not victorious, but intrigued. Then I will have to rely on competence, Bella. Their eyes meet across the candlelit table. The waiter returns. Conversation shifts briefly to food, wine, quiet logistics, but beneath the surface, the offer sits between them like a living thing. Both of them understand something dangerous has begun. Not just a war, not just a contract. A partnership that could burn everything, including them. Hours later, Serena and Max sit in a secure, armored town car, idling a block from the restaurant. The interior light is dim, casting deep shadows over their faces. It's a fool's errand, boss, Max says, his hands tight on the steering wheel. We're auditors, not internal affairs for the West Coast Syndicate. This goes against every WSS protocol. Serena is already drafting the terms on her tablet. It's the most complex security breach I've ever been offered, Max. The integration of high-level finance, logistics, and counterintelligence within a closed system. The scope is unprecedented. She pauses, recalling the unnerving stillness of Dante and the sheer volume of wealth he commanded. And the resources are unlimited. This is a chance to test our methodologies at the highest level of unconventional threat. And the risk? You'll be wearing a target, Serena, inside the tiger's cage. Serena nods, accepting the truth of it. That's why you take over operational command of the existing contracts immediately. I'll run this as a standalone assignment. You handle Chen, he's your problem now. If I don't check in within 48 hours, you assume I'm compromised and you initiate the extraction protocol. They both know the extraction protocol for a mission of this depth is tenuous at best. And what about the men? Max asks, gesturing glee toward the high-rise. Lipari looks solid. The cousin, Angelo, though? Lipari is a professional, an enforcer. Solid utility, Serena confirms. Angelo, however... She scrolls through a file of facial recognition data pulled from the restaurant. His welcome was too warm, too smooth. No genuine respect, just entitlement disguised as courtesy. He's the first systemic deviation I've clocked. Max sighs, his concern heavy. All right, boss. I've got the transfers. Good luck. Just try not to get too friendly with the enemy. With a confidence she doesn't yet feel, she says, "Intimacy is a vulnerability, Max. I am strictly transactional." Marco stands near the window, watching as Serena's town car slips into traffic below. His posture is tight, shoulders set in a way Dante recognizes. This isn't idle observation, it's concern. Behind him, Dante is already back at the terminal, scanning reports, cross-checking timelines, pulling threads loose before they can tighten around him again. "With respect, boss," Marco says finally, voice low but deliberate. "We need to talk about her." Dante doesn't look up. "Speak," he replies. Marco turns from the window. The men are talking, not the lieutenants, the lower ranks, dock foremen, drivers, a few of the old family's nephews who think proximity equals insight. Dante's fingers pause briefly on the keyboard. He still doesn't turn. "And what are they saying?" he asks. Marco exhales. "Depends who you ask. Some think she's a plant. Too clean, too precise. They're whispering about the feds, wire transfers, audits that feel anticipatory. Others think she's a distraction," Marco continues. "A honey trap. That she's here to pull your attention away while someone else moves pieces behind your back." Dante finally looks up. Not angry. Focused. "They're wrong," he says simply. Marco nods. "I know that. But perception matters. To the old guard, she doesn't fit the pattern. She didn't grow up in the system. She doesn't defer. She doesn't ask permission. And..." He hesitates, choosing his words carefully. "She's a black woman in rooms that still think power should look a certain way." Dante's gaze hardens. Not defensively, but decisively. "The men saw her identify a breach my own security teams missed," Dante says evenly. "She saved my life. That should end the discussion." "It won't," Marco replies. "Not for everyone. Some of them believe blood entitles them to relevance, to protection, to access. She threatens that hierarchy just by standing there." Dante leans back slightly, studying Marco now. "And what do you believe?" he asks. "She has fresh eyes," he says finally. "Distance. She moves like she owns the ground she walks on, not because she was given permission, but because she earned it somewhere else. That scares men who've never had to earn anything without a last name." A faint, humorless smile touches Dante's mouth. "She owns the ground of her own competence," Dante says. "That is the only qualification I require." Marco inclines his head. "Understood. I just want you aware, there's a quieter resistance forming. Cultural, ideological. Men who think your restraint is weakness and your openness to her is proof." Dante rises slowly from his chair. "They are confusing evolution with betrayal," he says. "Soon learn the difference." Marco hesitates, then adds, almost casually, "Doesn't hurt that she's not hard to look at, either." The temperature in the room drops. Dante's eyes lock onto Marco, not furious, not loud, but lethal in their certainty. Confine your observations to her strategic value, Dante says quietly, his Sicilian accent sharpening the edges of the words. She is not entertainment. She is not leverage. She is not bait. Marco swallows. She is a strategic asset, Dante continues, and anyone who treats her as anything else is advertising a misunderstanding they will regret. Marco nods once, sharply. Understood, boss. Only tactical value. Dante turns back to the terminal. And Marco, he adds without looking up. Yes? Anyone who calls her a spy, Dante says calmly, is free to bring me evidence. Anyone who calls her a distraction should ask themselves why her presence threatens them. Silence settles. Outside, Serena's car disappears into the city. Inside, Marco finally understands something critical. Dante Aleesi isn't just fighting enemies. He's dismantling an inheritance. The conference room is all glass and steel, designed to project confidence, not invite dissent. Dante sits at the head of the table. Marco occupies the chair to his right, relaxed but alert. Silas Romano stands near the wall, arms folded alongside Angelo. Lucia Aleesi scrolls silently on her tablet. Two senior lieutenants, Raphael Carlisi and Johnny Simonetti, sit opposite, posture rigid, expressions guarded. Serena stands at the far end, no notes, no entourage. I'm going to be direct. Your perimeter security is disciplined. Your internal protocols are not. A ripple of tension moves through the room. Serena clicks the remote once. A schematic blooms across the glass wall, access layers, clearance tiers, internal movement paths. You rely on inherited trust, blood, history. That creates blind spots. Raphael Conti leans back, unimpressed. This family has operated this way for decades. Serena doesn't look at him. I know, that's why the weakness is institutional. She highlights a node on the display. This access point should require dual verification. It doesn't. This system logs entry but not dwell time. This audit trail assumes honesty instead of validating it. Marco leans forward slightly, eyes narrowing, not defensive, curious. Gianni Russo scoffs. So now we treat family like suspects? Serena meets his gaze calmly. You treat systems like systems. They don't care who you trust. Dante says nothing. You have capable men, but you've built a culture where questioning proximity is framed as disrespect. That's how breaches survive, not through force, but through permission. She lowers the remote. Fixing this will make people uncomfortable. Some of you will feel insulted. That reaction is diagnostic. Marco exhales quietly. Silas doesn't move. Serena turns toward Dante. You asked me to find weakness. This is one of them. Dante holds her gaze. Revised protocols by end of day. Serena nods once. She turns and exits without waiting for approval. The door closes. For several seconds, no one speaks. Then Raphael mutters, breaking the silence. She talks like she owns the place. Gianni, measured but sharp. And she's awfully comfortable correcting men who've bled for this family. Marco's jaw tightens, but he remains silent. A third voice. Raphael, quieter now. Let's not pretend this isn't about more than tone. She's a woman, she's black, and she's issuing corrections in our house. The room goes still. Dante places both hands flat on the table. His voice is calm. He looks around the table, meeting each man's eyes in turn. Yes, she is a woman, she is black, and she is the only person in this room not blinded by blood or nostalgia. Marco looks up sharply. You confuse familiarity with competence. You mistake discomfort for disrespect, and you assume protection entitles you to superiority. Dante leans forward slightly and continues. She wasn't raised inside this system. That distance is why she sees its flaws. Fresh eyes are not a liability. They are why I brought her here. She does not speak at you. She speaks for me. The words land with finality. If any of you believe her gender or her race disqualifies her authority, then you are advertising a weakness our enemies will gladly exploit. No one meets his gaze. We will implement her protocols immediately. Hand-to-hand training starts tomorrow. He stands, signaling the end of the meeting. The gym is quiet in the way places get when men expect to win. Concrete floors, padded walls. Weapons racked but deliberately untouched. Overhead lights cast a clean, unforgiving glow. Dante stands near the observation rail in a fitted black training shirt and dark tactical pants, sleeves pushed up, arms folded. He looks like a man who knows exactly what violence costs and pays it anyway. Marco wears loose gray sweats and a compression tee, stretching out his shoulders with lazy confidence. Silas is already in motion, barefoot, black athletic pants, sleeveless shirt, built for function, not display. Angelo lounges against the wall in designer track pants and an expensive sleeveless hoodie, smirk in place, body language loud with entitlement. Serena steps onto the mat last. She's wearing fitted black training leggings and a cropped athletic top beneath an open zip-up jacket. The cut doesn't hide her generous curves, hips, thighs, chest. But nothing about her posture is soft. Her stance is balanced, grounded, predatory. Power contained, not advertised. Dante notices. So do the others. She doesn't smile. This isn't about strength, Serena says evenly. It's about perception. You'll come at me the way you think I move. That's the point. Marco chuckles, eyes flicking, just once to her figure before returning to her face. With respect, Ms. Winslow, you're impressive, he says. But you're half my size. Serena studies him for a beat. Measures not his body, but his assumptions. That, she says calmly, is your first mistake. She motions Marco forward with a casual curl of 4 fingers. Marco comes in disciplined, experienced, street smart. He doesn't underestimate her, but he assumes symmetry. He assumes her center of gravity behaves like his. Serena lets him believe that. She absorbs his momentum, pivots inside his reach, and drops her weight in a way that turns his confidence against him. A sharp knee, a clean wrist torque. Marco hits the mat hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. 3 seconds. Dante's posture shifts, interest sharpening into focus. Marco stares at the ceiling, stunned, then lets out a breathless laugh. Again, he mutters. Serena helps him up, not gentle, not dismissive, neutral. Silas steps forward next. He's different. He watches her hips, her shoulders, her breathing. He doesn't rush. Good instinct. Still not enough. Serena feints left, exaggerating her movement just enough to sell softness. When Silas hesitates, only a fraction, she drops her weight and takes his legs out clean. He rolls, recovers, comes back hard. She ends it with a choke that never fully closes, but could. Silas taps. He steps back, respect flickering clear in his eyes. Clear, he says simply. Then Angelo. He rolls his shoulders, amused, eyes unapologetically tracking her body. All right, he says. Let's see what all this mystique is about. Dante doesn't intervene. Serena doesn't adjust her stance. Angelo circles. She tracks him without moving her feet. He lunges, aggressive, theatrical. She sidesteps and clips his knee. Not hard, precise. He stumbles, surprised, recovers, swings again. She catches his arm, twists, and drives him into the mat with controlled violence, pinning him face down, her knee between his shoulder blades, his arm locked at an angle that would shatter if she applied real pressure. The room goes very still. Angelo snarls, furious. Get off me! Serena leans down, not close enough to whisper, but close enough that only he hears. You watched my body instead of my balance, she says calmly. I count on that. She releases him and steps back. Angelo scrambles up, face flushed, not from pain, but humiliation. You think this makes you some kind of predator? Serena meets his gaze fully now. Cold, unapologetic. I learned to read predators before I ever touched a weapon, she says. Not in a military academy. On the streets of Compton. Angelo scoffs. This isn't the street. No, Serena agrees. The street is honest. Underestimate a variable there and you die. She gestures between them, herself, the room, the men watching. Here, people survive their mistakes because blood and tradition cushion the fall. That's why you miss things. Her eyes flick briefly to his. You assume protection. Dante watches Angelo carefully now. Serena turns slightly, addressing all of them. My background gives me distance, she says. Fresh eyes. I'm not bound by your history. I don't confuse familiarity with safety. Her gaze returns to Angelo, just long enough to sting. And I don't pretend my appearance is a disadvantage. I use it. Every time you let it distract you. Silence. Marco straightens slowly. Silas nods once. Dante steps forward at last, voice calm, final. Evaluation complete. His eyes meet Serena's, not possessive, not indulgent, certain. And for the first time, every man in the room understands something they cannot unlearn. Serena Winslow didn't win because she was stronger. She won because she weaponized every assumption they made, and never once needed their permission to do it. Serena's temporary office in the Aleesi Tower is efficient, not comfortable. No personal effects, no photographs. Just a clean desk, a wall of monitors, and a whiteboard already half filled with diagrams mapping human behavior and security flows. The blinds are half open, letting in a measured slice of afternoon light. She is standing when Dante arrives. Not because she heard him, because she always works on her feet. The door opens without ceremony. Dante steps in alone. No entourage, no weapon visible, jacket off, sleeves rolled. The look of a man deliberately lowering his profile. Serena glances up, expression neutral. You don't knock. I wanted to see if you'd notice, he replies. She gestures to the whiteboard. I did, 30 seconds ago. You pause before doors when you're thinking. A corner of his mouth lifts. Unfortunate habit. He takes in the room, the sparse setup, the way she's already bent his space to her discipline. You're settling in, he observes. I'm working, she corrects. Settling implies comfort. He nods, accepting the distinction. I wanted to thank you, Dante says. The words are plain, unadorned. The training yesterday, it was necessary. You shook the dust out of men who've been relying on reputation instead of readiness. She turns back to her screen. They'll adjust, or they won't. They will, he says. They don't like you. She smiles faintly. Good. But they respect you, he adds. That matters more. She meets his gaze now. Respect bought by fear erodes. Respect bought by competence sticks. Exactly, Dante says. And they know you didn't humiliate them. You exposed limits and moved on. Marco says morale dipped for about 10 minutes, then productivity spiked. She arches a brow. He measured morale? He always does, Dante replies. He just doesn't talk about it. A brief shared understanding passes between them. Dante steps closer to the desk, resting his knuckles lightly on its edge. Not invading, but present. There's a meeting this evening, he says. Marco will be there. 2 rival groups, legitimate on paper, predatory underneath. Serena studies him. You want my read? I want your eyes, Dante corrects. You see what the rest of us are conditioned to miss. She considers. Observation only? For now, he agrees. You won't speak unless you choose to. But I want to know what you notice. Posture, timing, the lies beneath the words. She nods once. Who are the rivals? He names them. Shipping interests, union-adjacent players, old alliances fraying at the edges. Serena processes quickly. They'll test you indirectly. Probe Marco's authority. Watch your reactions more than your offers. A flicker of approval crosses his face. That's why I'm asking you to come. She tilts her head slightly. And the men. Will they be comfortable with me in the room? Dante's gaze hardens, not angry, just certain. They will adjust, he says, or they will be replaced. She holds his stare. No challenge, no submission. Fine, she says. I'll attend, I'll observe, I'll debrief afterward. He straightens, decision settled. One more thing, Dante adds, pausing at the door. She looks up. The men won't say it, he continues, voice low. But you made them better. That has weight here. Her expression softens just a fraction. Efficiency does that, she replies. He smiles, genuine this time. I'll send Marco the details, Dante says. Thank you, Serena. As he leaves, she watches the door close, not guarded, not curious. Aware. This wasn't a courtesy call. It was a shift. He didn't come to oversee her. He came to integrate her. And that realization settles in her chest with equal parts satisfaction and warning. The meeting has already gone on too long. Serena clocks it the moment she stops hearing new information. The men across the table, two representatives from a rival logistics group, are still talking, still nodding, still posturing. But their bodies have shifted, shoulders angled slightly toward the door. One man keeps touching the edge of his phone, not checking it, grounding himself. Marco sits at the head of the table, composed, measured. He's doing what he does best, stabilizing tension, offering just enough concession to keep negotiations alive without surrendering ground. On paper, it's working. In Serena's gut, something is wrong. She doesn't interrupt immediately. She watches, counts breaths, tracks eye contact. The younger rival clears his throat too often. The older one smiles a half-second too late. Their security detail, 3 men who should be bored by now, are alert in a way that doesn't match the room, anticipatory. Serena leans slightly toward Marco, her voice low enough that it doesn't break the rhythm of the meeting. This has reached diminishing returns, she murmurs. We should end it. Marco glances at her, surprised but not dismissive. We're close to a framework. That's what concerns me, she replies quietly. They're relieved, not cautious. Across the table, the older rival lifts his glass. I think we're aligned, gentlemen, pending paperwork. Serena doesn't look at him. She looks at the door, at the corridor beyond, at the subtle repositioning of one guard, blocking a sightline that didn't need blocking. Her instincts harden. Marco, she says, firmer now. We should leave, now. The word now lands. Marco straightens. He trusts her, enough. All right, he says, standing. We'll reconvene after council reviews. The rivals exchange a glance. Quick, sharp. Alarm flickers, gone almost instantly, but Serena catches it. That's sooner than expected, the younger one says. Opportunity favors efficiency, Marco replies smoothly, extending his hand. The handshake is reluctant, tight. The men rise, smiles return, but they don't reach the eyes. Serena doesn't sit back down. She collects her tablet, already moving. As they exit the back room into the service corridor, Marco exhales. Talk to me, he says under his breath. They expected more time, Serena replies. And they expected us to leave out the front. Marco slows half a step. You think... The night explodes. A sharp foot tears through the air, suppressed fire, close, coordinated. Marco's security reacts instantly. Weapons up, bodies shifting to shield. Muzzle flashes spark from the mouth of the alley. Marco grunts. The sound is wrong. Serena turns just in time to see his leg give. Blood erupts, dark, arterial, soaking his trousers, splashing onto the pavement in a spreading pool. Marco! Someone shouts. Another volley cracks the brickwork above them. Guards return fire, shouting positions, dragging civilians down. Serena doesn't hesitate. She hooks her arm under Marco's shoulder and hauls him backward, using the wall for leverage, pulling him out of the kill zone with a strength that surprises even the men rushing to help. "Down!" she snaps. "Everyone down!" Marco slams against the brick, sliding, face already draining of color. Serena is on her knees in front of him in a heartbeat. She sees it immediately. Femoral. Fuck. "Kit," she says, already pulling the compact trauma roll from her belt. She shoves it into Marco's hands. "Hold pressure. Hard. Don't be gentle." He's fighting consciousness, eyes unfocused, jaw clenched. "I'm hit," he mutters unnecessarily. "Yes," she says flatly. "And you're not dying today." She rips the fabric away, exposing the wound. Blood pulses with horrifying efficiency. She grabs the quick clot pack and presses it deep, packing the cavity with ruthless precision. Marco gasps, a strangled sound ripping from his chest. "I know," she says, voice steady, anchoring him. "Stay with me." She yanks his belt free, looping it high on his thigh. "I'm making a tourniquet. This is going to hurt." She tightens. Marco groans, head falling back. "Hey, Marco, you stay with me, okay? You have 3, maybe 4 minutes before you lose this limb, capo," she tells him, her eyes locked on his pale face. "You fight this. You hear me? Pressure on the pack. Now." Something in her tone cuts through the shock. Marco inhales sharply, refocuses, presses down. "That's it," she says. "Good." Gunfire fades as the perimeter is secured. The alley falls into a ringing silence, broken only by Marco's labored breathing. Serena checks his pulse. Fast, thready. She looks up at the men frozen around them, armed, dangerous, stunned. "Gentlemen, can we respectfully get the fuck out of here?" A beat, then, "Now." Marco lets out a strained chuckle. "You heard the lady." That breaks it. Movement erupts. Someone calls for the car. Another sweeps the alley. 2 men lift Marco carefully. Serena stays close, hand still on his leg, monitoring pressure until the last second before he's loaded into the vehicle. As the car peels away toward the private clinic, Serena finally exhales. Her hands are slick with blood. Her jaw is set. She was right, and someone wanted them exactly where they were. She just doesn't know yet how close that someone is. The violence of the alley does not follow them underground. The Aleesi private clinic is silent by design. White walls, softened lighting, the faint antiseptic scent of order imposed on chaos. It exists beneath the polished facade of a legitimate medical research facility, a place built to absorb damage without leaving evidence. Dante Aleesi arrives without haste. That alone straightens the guards. He moves through the secured corridor with controlled inevitability, a man accustomed to doors opening before he reaches them. Angelo and the remaining entourage trail several steps behind, instinctively yielding space. Dante's focus finds Serena immediately. She stands near the glass wall of the trauma suite, her suit darkened with drying blood, her curls loosened from discipline, but her posture remains unbowed. She is mid-brief with the chief surgeon, voice steady, clinical, uninflected by emotion. "Arterial spray confirmed femoral involvement," Serena is saying. "I packed the wound with quick clot immediately and applied a high tourniquet using his belt. Transport window was under 3 minutes. The surgeon nods, intent. "Your decisions in the field were exactly right." Dante stops several feet away. He listens. The surgeon turns, recognizing him. "Mr. Aleesi," he says, impressed. "Your lieutenant is alive because of her. The rapid response trauma care saved his life. Stabilization and transport were flawless. We repaired the femoral artery. He will recover fully, and he will walk. Without Ms. Winslow, he would have bled out before arrival." Serena inclines her head once. No relief, no pride, just acknowledgement. Dante remains still a beat longer than necessary, absorbing the truth. Then he steps forward. Up close, his presence fills the space. Height, authority, restraint held tight. His gaze traces the blood on her sleeves, the dark smear along her collarbone. "Et tu, cara?" he asks quietly. "Are you injured?" "I'm fine," Serena replies without hesitation. "The ambush wasn't meant for me. They were targeting Marco. I was incidental." The word lands wrong. Dante exhales sharply, irritation flickering across his face, not at her assessment, but at the implication. "Incidental still means exposed," he says, before realizing he's spoken the thought aloud. "You shouldn't have been in that line of fire." The admission hangs between them, raw, unplanned. Serena studies him, momentarily surprised by the edge in his voice. "I restructured the exit protocols this morning," she says evenly. Only 4 people had the revised route and timing. His jaw tightens, anger sharpening, but now threaded with something else. "And it put you in danger," he says, quieter. "Unnecessarily." She shakes her head once, not dismissive, just firm. "Part of the job," she says, meeting his gaze. Silence stretches. In it, 2 realizations land at once. The betrayal is closer than he wants to accept, and his instinct to shield her has already begun to compromise his objectivity. She sees both register in his eyes, her own lift to meet his. "That information came from someone inside," she says quietly. Something dark coils behind Dante's gaze. He doesn't respond. Instead, he turns sharply and strides toward the swinging doors of the recovery suite, fury compressed into motion. The doors shudder faintly as he passes through them. Angelo watches him go, expression unreadable. Serena remains where she is, blood-stained, steady, already reconstructing the meeting that should never have gone that far. She was right, and now Dante Aleesi knows it. The recovery room is dim, hushed by design. Monitors hum softly. IV lines snake from Marco's arm. His skin is pale, but his eyes are clear, focused in the way of a man who refuses to let pain dull his awareness. Dante enters alone. The door closes quietly behind him. "Boss?" Marco says, voice rough but steady. Dante lifts a hand. "You don't speak unless you need to." Marco exhales through his nose, a faint, humorless smile touching his mouth. "Then I need to." Dante pulls a chair close to the bed and sits. He doesn't look away. "When it went bad," Marco continues, choosing his words carefully, "the men hesitated. Not long, but long enough." His jaw tightens slightly. She didn't. Dante remains still. Marco turns his head just enough to hold Dante's gaze. Serena didn't wait for permission. She didn't panic. She took control like it was muscle memory. A breath. "She knew what the wound was before I hit the wall. She moved me, stopped the bleed, kept me conscious. No wasted motion, no noise." He swallows. "If she hadn't been there, I wouldn't be." The weight of that settles. Dante nods once, accepting the fact, not the praise. Marco shifts slightly, pain flickering across his face, but he presses on. "I've watched a lot of people claim competence," he says quietly. "She doesn't claim it. She is it." "I trust her," Marco finishes, "with my life, with the men, and with yours." That last part lands hardest. Dante doesn't answer immediately. His hand closes around Marco's forearm, firm, grounding. "You did your job," Dante says. "And she did hers." Marco's mouth curves faintly. "Just wanted to make sure you heard it from me." Dante meets his eyes. "I did." He rises, straightening the sheet at Marco's side with a precise, practiced movement. "You rest," Dante says. "The rest will be handled." Marco exhales, relief loosening his shoulders. As Dante turns toward the door, The room remains quiet. No declarations, no theatrics. Just one truth, now fixed in place. Serena Winslow didn't save Marco by chance, and Dante Aleesi will not ignore a fact that's solid. Dante returns to the waiting area alone. The brittle edge to his composure is almost imperceptible, but Serena sees it. The stillness in him is no longer calm. It's contained. "You said you were incidental," he says, stopping a measured distance in front of her. His voice is low, compressed. "Collateral." "I was," Serena replies evenly. "Marco was the objective, but not the endgame. Taking him out was meant to rattle you after the restaurant failed." "And if the variables had shifted," Dante presses, "if the shooter had adjusted, if the exit timing had been misread by seconds?" He steps closer before he means to. The space narrows. The air tightens. "I didn't bring you into this to stand in a kill zone," he says, the control he prides himself on thinning at the edges. "I hired you to see the danger, not absorb it." The admission surprises both of them. Serena doesn't retreat. "This isn't absorption," she says calmly. "This is exposure inherent to the role. You don't deploy strategy without contact. You know that." He exhales sharply, jaw flexing. "You shouldn't have been in that position," he says again. Quieter now. Less command. More truth than he intended. She meets his gaze, unflinching. "Dante, danger isn't a deviation for me. It's the environment. This is exactly the work you hired me to do." Silence settles, heavy, recalibrating. Then Serena continues, shifting the axis back to what matters. "Someone tested your structure tonight," she says. "Not randomly, not emotionally. They targeted Marco to destabilize command and measure response. This was reconnaissance, not retaliation." His eyes sharpen, fury cooling into focus. "They're mapping me," Dante says. "And escalating," Serena confirms. "Marco won't be the end of it. He was the proof of concept." The last of Dante's visible anger drains away, replaced by something colder, precise. "The traitor didn't just target my operation," he says slowly. "He targeted my visibility, my control." His gaze lifts to hers. "And he used you as a variable." She doesn't deny it. That truth settles between them, uncomfortable, unavoidable. Dante nods once, decision locking into place. "Then this ends quickly," he says, quietly, completely. A pause. "They've declared war," he finishes, voice dropping into its familiar lethal register. "And I don't allow wars to linger." Serena watches him turn away, not storming now, not reacting, calculating. She was right, and now the cost of that truth has fully landed. Serena does not linger on the narrow margin between survival and loss. The bullet, the blood, the quick clot, those are resolved variables, tactical problems already answered. She leaves them behind without sentiment and returns to the only question that matters now. Why? Back in the sterile, temporary office Dante has assigned her, she takes her place before a bank of monitors alive with movement, financial flows, logistics chains, personnel schedules, fragmented intelligence streams that together form the nervous system of the Aleesi enterprise. She is no longer looking for weapons. She is hunting intent. The axiom that governs her work, one drilled into her long before Winslow Security Solutions existed, guides every decision. Systems don't fail. People make them fail. The ambush wasn't opportunistic. It was too clean, too well-timed. A surgical strike designed not simply to wound Marco, but to destabilize command, hit the spine of the operation, and force Dante into reaction. Draw him forward, expose the structure to secondary threats. Serena ignores the digital noise, the firewalls, encryption layers, and manufactured anomalies meant to dazzle less disciplined analysts. Those are distractions. Instead, she overlays years of data. Transport manifests against union contracts, security rotations against asset valuations, personnel access against financial irregularities. She looks for deviations that only appear when someone believes they are invisible. The question isn't who pulled the trigger. It's who had the authority to alter routes, revise timing, and introduce just enough friction to make the ambush inevitable. Who could coordinate external muscle while remaining insulated inside the system? Who benefits? And more importantly, who had the proximity, the patience, and the confidence to treat Marco's life as a lever? Serena leans back slightly, eyes narrowing as the patterns begin to cohere. This wasn't chaos. It was design. And the architect is still inside the house. The day after the ambush, Serena moves through the upper corridors of Aleesi Tower with purposeful calm. She wears a fresh suit, immaculate and pressed, but the atmosphere shifts subtly as she passes. Conversations lowering, eyes tracking. Survival has weight. It follows her like a shadow. She is halfway to the elevator bank when Angelo Insolero steps into her path. Immaculate as ever. Tailored suit, effortless smile, the polished ease of a man designed to inspire confidence in annual reports and donor galas alike. He looks untouched by chaos. "Ms. Winslow?" Angelo says smoothly, extending a hand. His grip is warm, confident. "I was hoping to see you. What you did for Marco? Extraordinary. The old ways don't teach that kind of speed. You saved his life." Serena releases his hand first. "It was necessary trauma care," she replies evenly. "My training is comprehensive." "Of course," Angelo murmurs, already closing distance, lowering his voice as if sharing concern rather than planting suggestion. "Still, I worry about my cousin. Dante is brilliant, visionary, but sometimes too cautious. Too reliant on spreadsheets and protocols." Serena watches him closely now. "Caution has kept this family insulated from legal exposure," she says. "That isn't accidental." Angelo smiles, unfazed. "Exposure is the cost of growth. No, one cannot expand without risk." He gestures loosely toward the secure elevator leading to Dante's office. Dante clings to legitimacy as if it were armor. But this climate rewards adaptability. There are markets he refuses to touch, high-yield markets. The kind our grandfather would have embraced without apology. Our grandfather. The words linger, heritage invoked as entitlement. He calls it conscience, Angelo continues lightly. I call it a liability. While he protects reputation, others are building loyalty with real capital. Dark streams, yes, but they keep street armies fed. They keep power stable. Serena's face remains composed, but her attention sharpens. This isn't frustration, it's recruitment. "So you believe the family should enter drug trafficking," Serena says flatly. "Human trafficking." Angelo chuckles, waving away the precision of her language. "I believe in opportunity. Marco understands that. Many of the men do. They're traditionalists. They recognize restraint as weakness." He touches her arm, brief, possessive, dismissive. "You're the kind of mind we need," he says softly. "Efficient, unsentimental, unafraid of blood. Dante should listen to those of us who understand that power comes from unlimited resources, not moral hesitation." He steps back, smile returning to public-facing perfection. "Think about it, Ms. Winslow." Then he walks away. Serena remains still, not stunned, not offended, processing. Her mind is already aligning his words with the patterns on her screens. Old-world lineage, moral restraint as weakness, unlimited resources, profit over insulation. Angelo hadn't been testing her loyalty. He had been declaring his philosophy. And in doing so, he had articulated the exact rationale behind the systemic vulnerabilities she'd been mapping, the motive required to weaponize access, reroute logistics, and sacrifice Marco as a destabilizing move. This wasn't persuasion, it was confession. Serena turns toward the elevator, expression unchanged. The architect of failure has just identified himself, and he doesn't yet realize how clearly she sees him. What began as noise resolves into pattern. The threads, once faint, disparate, tighten and interlock. Serena's models stop compensating and start confirming. Her algorithms flag a series of minor decisions, each defensible in isolation, each logged as routine, all approved by the same source, Angelo in Solero. She traces a delayed electronics shipment through the port of Long Beach, dismissed at the time as a clerical lag. The 2-hour delay shifted Marco's travel window just enough to make the ambush viable. She follows shuffled trucking manifests in the union system, rerouting specific drivers, later linked to rogue factions, onto sensitive corridors. Then the surveillance logs, marginal camera adjustments, fractional blind spots introduced across several Aleesi properties. Changes so subtle they read as maintenance. Changes only someone intimate with the security architecture could make. Individually, they are accidents. Collectively, they form a continuous chain, precise, intentional, patient. This wasn't improvisation, it was preparation. Angelo hadn't been reacting to Dante's decisions. He had been shaping the environment around them, engineering friction, introducing delay, creating exposure. Marco wasn't collateral, he was leverage. A pressure point meant to draw Dante forward, narrow his options, and force miscalculation. Serena leans back, the full schematic now visible. Angelo in Solero hadn't tried to overthrow Dante in a single move. He had been teaching the system to fail, quietly, incrementally, until collapse looked inevitable. The betrayal wasn't sudden, it was designed. Serena's analysis shifts from method to motive. The human factor comes into focus. Angelo's profile resolves with unsettling clarity, entitlement fused with grievance, ambition sharpened by resentment. He believes his old-world lineage, inheritance by blood and history, confers a legitimacy Dante's meritocratic rise never can. Where Dante built authority through discipline and restraint, Angelo sees theft of what should have been his. And beneath the ideology is money. Angelo doesn't interpret Dante's refusal to traffic in drugs and human beings as honor. He sees it as incompetence, millions in unrealized revenue, loyalty left unfunded, influence ceded to rivals willing to monetize anything. Conscience, in Angelo's calculus, is not virtue, it is inefficiency. From that conviction, the rest follows. He has quietly assembled a shadow coalition, resentful family members who romanticize the old brutality and chafe at Dante's restraint, paired with external factions eager to exploit the profit streams Dante barred. Together they form an alternative ecosystem, one built on speed, excess, and vice. Angelo's objective was never a clean coup. It was saturation. Flood the system with illicit cash. Buy loyalty faster than Dante could earn it. Force a choice between survival and principle. Power to Angelo is not stewardship. It is extraction. And he is willing to hollow out the empire from the inside to prove it. Serena sits back in her chair, the office lights dimmed to reduce screen glare. Angelo's profile remains open on the central monitor. Financial overlays, access logs, decision trees converging into a single name she has not yet spoken aloud to anyone who matters. Telling Dante what she's found is not the problem. Telling him how, that requires precision. Angelo is blood, not just family, but history. And history, when confronted too abruptly, has a way of turning defensive before it turns honest. If she presents this as accusation, Dante will instinctively fortify. If she presents it as analysis, he will listen. But the timing must be exact. Too early, and Angelo adapts. Too late, and someone else bleeds. She exhales slowly, eyes unfocusing as she stares past the data. You don't confront a king about betrayal, she thinks. You show him the map and let him recognize the terrain himself. Her fingers hover over the comm panel, then withdraw. Not yet. She needs one more confirmation. One final alignment that removes even the possibility of coincidence. Behind her, unseen, a tiny red indicator blinks once, then steadies. The camera is no larger than a coin, embedded inside a ventilation seam above the bookshelf. Its lens is angled perfectly, wide enough to capture her desk, narrow enough to avoid reflection. No sound, no movement, just observation. Serena shifts in her chair, not abruptly, not suspiciously. But the muscles between her shoulders tighten all the same. She doesn't see the camera. She feels the imbalance. The faint sense that the room has acquired an extra perspective. Her gaze drifts, not to the ceiling, not to the vent, but to the reflection in her darkened monitor. She studies it casually as if checking posture, nothing obvious. Still, the sensation persists. She straightens a folder on her desk, one she doesn't need, then deliberately minimizes Angelo's file, replacing it with a benign logistics dashboard. Mundane, boring, harmless. Only then does she allow herself to think about Dante again. He will ask if I'm certain, she decides, and I will tell him certainty is a luxury. What I have is inevitability. She taps a single note into her private log, coded in a shorthand only she uses. Architect identified. Disclosure requires controlled environment. She saves it locally, not to the network. The red light in the vent does not blink. Serena stands, smoothing her jacket, and walks to the window, giving whoever might be watching nothing more than her back and the city beyond. Her expression is unreadable, but her mind is already moving past discovery, toward execution. Whoever is observing her now believes they are ahead of the board. They are wrong. She just hasn't decided yet who deserves to know that first. 2:08 a.m. Aleesi Tower, normally alive with quiet movement, rests in a manufactured stillness, the city's electric glow washing over glass and steel. Serena enters Dante's private office without announcement. The space is soundproofed, expansive, controlled. Dante sits behind the massive cherrywood desk, multiple monitors casting cool light across his face. He is still in his tailored suit, posture rigid with restraint. He doesn't look up immediately, but the moment she crosses the threshold, his attention shifts fully to her. The past week hangs between them. Blood spilled, lines crossed, nothing theoretical anymore. "Bella," Dante says at last, fatigue roughening his voice. "What are you doing here at this hour? This couldn't wait." Serena steps forward and slides a secured terminal across the desk. Their fingers brush briefly, accidental, fleeting, but the contact sparks through the room like exposed wire. She withdraws at once, all focus redirected to the screen as the Aleesi organizational schematic blooms to life, laced with aggressive red vectors. Dante leans in, eyes narrowing. "I've identified the architect of the breach," Serena says evenly. "It's Angelo." Dante's face remains unreadable. "Convince me." "He didn't intend to kill you at the restaurant," Serena continues, voice precise, stripped of emotion. "That attempt failed. Marco was phase 2. Taking him out destabilizes command and forces you into reaction. The target was never the body. It was your control." She highlights a sequence, minor decisions cascading into inevitability. Delayed shipments, altered routes, union interference, surveillance blind spots, none of it accidental. The leak wasn't a breach, it was a siege, sustained, internal. Dante doesn't move. He studies the pattern, not questioning its validity, but recognizing the intelligence behind it. The strategy is brutal, elegant, familiar. The drug pipelines, he murmurs. The trafficking. His voice is rough now. He told you my restraint was a liability. He did, Serena confirms. He believes loyalty follows cash, that conscience is inefficiency. Dante pushes back from the desk slowly. His face is pale, not with fear, but with the weight of betrayal. He is my blood, he says quietly. I put him at my table. I trusted him to guard the gate. His gaze drops to Serena, not searching for proof now, but for certainty. He risked Marco's life. Not just for money, Serena replies. For control. He wanted to prove the old world still wins, that ruthlessness outpaces evolution. He wants the keys to your kingdom, Dante, and he was willing to burn it down to take them. Dante rises and moves around the desk. He stops too close. His presence eclipses the light, shadows cutting across her face. The fury he kept contained at the clinic simmers now, low, intimate, dangerous. I protected him, he says softly. When he was reckless, when he was unready, I gave him authority. I taught him how to build without brutality. His thumb brushes her jaw, light, unintentional, deeply inappropriate. Serena stills. She doesn't pull away, but the moment tightens, breath caught, discipline holding fast. Then Dante realizes what he's done. His hand drops. His fist clenches once at his side. He turns back to the desk, reclaiming distance, control, command. When he sits, the decision has already been made. The surgeon has identified the cancer, he says, voice returned to its lethal calm. He meets Serena's gaze, respect clear and unembellished. I will handle the excision myself. The room settles into silence again, not peace, preparation. And both of them understand this conversation has crossed the final threshold. The summons comes with the pre-dawn light, cold, absolute, non-negotiable. Angelo Insolero presents himself at Dante's penthouse office, flanked by two of Dante's most formidable enforcers. His usual practiced smile is gone, replaced by a cautious sharpness. He already knows this is not a conversation, it's a reckoning. Dante waits alone behind his desk. The office has been stripped of its usual activity. No scrolling data, no ambient glow. Only a single monitor stands against the far wall, dark and dormant. The air is heavy with accusation, betrayal pressing in from every surface. Cugino, Angelo says lightly, attempting familiarity. This is unexpected. I trust there isn't a problem? Dante doesn't rise. You orchestrated the ambush, he says, voice low and lethal. You rerouted logistics, compromised security, engaged in drug and human trafficking under my name, and you risked Marco's life to destabilize my command. Each word lands with judicial precision. Do you deny it? Angelo glances at the enforcers. Their faces don't change. There is no point in denial. Deny it? He scoffs, bitterness breaking through. Why? Because I saw what you refused to see? Because I understand that an empire either evolves or dies? He steps closer. You cling to sentiment, Dante. Honor. Conscience. While our rivals gorge themselves on the profits you leave untouched, I was securing the family's future. Dante stands, slowly, deliberately. You endangered my people, he says. You are a cancer. Angelo's mouth curves, defiant. And you are weak. You've developed a weakness you didn't have before. Dante's eyes narrow. Enough? Is it? Angelo asks softly. Angelo reaches for his jacket. The room shifts. Metal whispers as Dante's men reach for their weapons. Dante doesn't move. Angelo produces a slim black device, smiling. One tap and the far monitor ignites. A live feed fills the screen. Serena Winslow's office at Aleesi Tower. She sits at her desk, unaware, focused on a terminal. A cup of tea cools at her side. Every detail is crisp, intimate. Dante stills. The pause is brief, but Angelo sees it. She's impressive, Angelo says, savoring the moment. Found every thread, every vulnerability. Missed just one. Another tap. The image zooms toward a ventilation grate near Serena's desk. A tiny red light pulses within the shadowed seam. A remote fragmentation charge, Angelo explains. Small, precise, enough to turn that office into an inconvenience. He lifts the device. And I have the trigger. Dante's hand twitches toward his own weapon. He stops himself. That fraction of restraint confirms everything. Serena is no longer just an asset. She is leverage. What do you want? Dante asks, voice ground tight with violence. My freedom, Angelo replies calmly. I walk out, unharmed. Once I'm clear, the charge is disarmed. His smile sharpens. Then we continue this war with clearer terms. Your conscience is now a tool I can use. Dante looks at the blinking red light, at Serena's oblivious focus. There is no choice. You walk, he says at last, the word poisoned. But understand this. This is not mercy. This is delay. Angelo inclines his head, satisfied. Until next time, Cugino. He exits without another glance back. The door closes. Dante doesn't move. Then his voice cuts into the silence, clipped and absolute. Silas, code red. Extract Serena immediately. No engagement. Bring her to the penthouse. He ends the transmission and stares at the screen. At her. His fist comes down on the desk, wood groaning under the force. This line will not be crossed. Not by blood, not by betrayal, not by anyone foolish enough to believe leverage equals victory. The war has changed, and Dante Aleesi has just learned who he is willing to burn the world down for. The tension in Serena's temporary office remains deceptively calm. She sits at her desk, the schematic of Angelo's betrayal minimized to a dormant corner of her screen, while she reviews external threat vectors, shipping routes, rival patterns, pressure points still untested. Her focus is absolute. She does not see the camera. She does not hear the faint hum in the vent. The door opens hard, not a knock, a breach. Serena's hand drops instantly to the small of her back, fingers brushing the grip of her Glock as her head snaps up, analyst giving way to combatant in a single fluid motion. The man who enters fills the doorway. 6'5", dense and immovable, built like a vault. Close-cropped hair, a face carved into stillness. His eyes, dark blue, steady, military, scan the room with disciplined precision as he shuts the door behind him and locks it. He doesn't look at Serena, he looks past her. Ms. Winslow, he says, voice deep and absolute. Please do not reach for your weapon. I'm Silas. Mr. Aleesi sent me. There is a confirmed immediate threat inside this room. Serena is already moving. Location? She asks, already adjusting her path to keep distance from fixed structures. Silas falls into step beside her, pointing once as they move. Ventilation, upper left, remote fragmentation charge, armed. A beat. Angelo has the trigger. Serena doesn't stop to look. She's already triangulating the blast radius, adjusting her exit vector. Clever, she says, voice even. Analog? Yes. How long? Unknown. Extraction is immediate. She reaches the chair, snatches her phone in one smooth motion, and keeps walking. Silas grabs the jacket from the back of her chair and drapes it over her shoulders mid-stride, shielding her profile without slowing either of them. "Service elevator," he continues, hand firm at the small of her back, steering. "Non-stop to the roof. From there, airlift to the penthouse. We walk fast. We do not run." "Understood." They are through the door and into the corridor within seconds. This isn't fear. It's procedure. They move through service corridors designed to disappear people. Doors open and seal behind them with muted efficiency. No alarms, no raised voices, just controlled velocity. The elevator doors close. The ascent is silent, pressure building in Serena's ears as the reality settles cold and precise in her bloodstream. She does not look shaken, but her thoughts are already 2 moves ahead. Angelo didn't plant the device to kill her. He planted it to make Dante watch. And that tells her exactly how personal this war has just become. Dante's penthouse is vast, minimalist, and hushed. Glass walls framing the city like a living map, lights low and deliberate. It is the antithesis of the violence below, a place designed for command, not chaos. Dante stands near the windows. No tie. Sleeves rolled to the elbow. The careful composure he wears like armor has been stripped down to tension and restraint. His face is pale, drawn tight by the vigil he's kept, watching a live feed, waiting for movement, bracing for absence. When the elevator doors glide open, the space beyond feels unreal. Silas steps aside the moment Serena clears the elevator. "Extraction complete," he reports, already moving to his post by the doors. Dante barely acknowledges him. His focus is fixed on Serena. He crosses the distance in 2 strides and stops only when she's directly in front of him. His hands come up, firm, unfiltered, and he pulls her into his chest. The embrace is brief but fierce, not indulgent, not careful. The instinctive reaction of a man who has just watched a line he cannot afford to lose come within inches of annihilation. Serena stiffens on reflex, surprised by the lack of permission, by the very public breach of protocol. But the force of his relief holds her in place for a heartbeat longer than she expects. Then he releases her. His hands settle on her shoulders, steadying, his eyes searching her face with a raw intensity he doesn't bother to mask. "You're unharmed," he says hoarsely. "When he showed me the feed, I saw the placement. I saw you sitting there." She exhales once, grounding herself, and glances briefly toward Silas, who has fixed his attention firmly on the city beyond the glass. "Dante," she says quietly, using his name with intention. "You need to tell me what the hell is going on. Why was there an incendiary device in my office?" That snaps him back into structure. He gestures toward the sofa, and they sit. He drags a hand through his hair, frustration and fury bleeding through the cracks. "I confronted him, Angelo, with your evidence," Dante says. "He didn't deny the betrayal. Then he showed me the live feed, the detonator. He knew I wouldn't risk it. Not the building, not the collateral, and not—" He stops, recalibrates. "You." "So he's been watching me," Serena says, calm, filing it away. "Yes." Dante's jaw tightens, and he counted on my response. He glances once toward Silas, a man whose world is built on Dante's absolute control. "I don't operate like that," Dante continues. "I don't panic. I don't allow threats to dictate terms. Marco is alive because of you, and I still let Angelo walk." The admission costs him. "When I saw that screen," he says, voice lower now, stripped of command, "I couldn't think about the Enterprise. I couldn't think about strategy. I could only think about getting you out." He reaches for her hand, not possessive this time, just anchoring. His thumb traces the edge of her knuckles, a grounding habit he doesn't seem aware of. "I brought you into my world as a strategic advantage," he says, "and I let it become personal." Serena watches him, unreadable. Angelo forced me to see something I never planned to confront, Dante continues, holding her gaze. That there is now something I will risk everything to protect. A pause. I have feelings for you, Dante says. The words are unfamiliar, heavy. And that makes you a vulnerability, one I won't remove, one I will protect. The truth settles in the room, spoken openly, dangerously, with a witness present. That is why I let him go, Dante finishes, and why I chose you over revenge. Silence follows. Not awkward, not unresolved, just altered. Serena sits very still, the professional wall she's built under sustained pressure, showing its first fine fracture. Not broken, but no longer impermeable. The war has shifted, and so has the terrain B. The silence in the penthouse settles, dense, charged. The echo of the near bombing still hums beneath Dante's admission, colliding with something more dangerous, the warmth of his unguarded truth. Serena eases her hand free. The movement is controlled, deliberate, but not rushed. She needs the boundary back in place, even as she feels how thin it's become. She flicks a glance toward Silas, acutely aware of the breach in hierarchy Dante has allowed and the fact that he does not appear ashamed of it. Her status has shifted, from asset to leverage, and she refuses to stay there. This wasn't about the bomb, Serena says, voice steady, stripped of heat. Angelo used my presence to force a decision. He clocked your concern and weaponized it. The point wasn't detonation, it was proof. She rises and moves to the window, placing her back to the glass, the city spread out below her like a living schematic. The posture is instinctive, wall behind her, field in front. He wants the family to believe you're compromised, she continues. That buys him time, space, momentum. He thinks he's already won the first phase of the psychological war. She turns slightly, eyes sharp. He hasn't. The fear has burned off, leaving clarity in its place. But we control the narrative now. Every move you make has to reinforce that I'm here because I'm effective, not because I matter to you. Any visible attachment to me validates his argument. Dante nods once, accepting the correction without resistance. He bought distance, he says. Nothing more. His coalition is active. He'll go after the unions next. Shipping, logistics, he knows where the money flows. Serena exhales, short, controlled. Strategy is solid ground. He won't stall, she replies. Angelo needs spectacle, cash, public dominance. He'll push the trafficking operations you shut down fast. He has to prove control. She looks back at him. Where is he weak? Dante pours whiskey and offers her the glass. Their fingers brush, brief, intentional this time, and neither of them pretends it's accidental. The warmth steadies her, the shared moment an unspoken truce. Angelo is flashy, Dante says. He's built parallel infrastructure, shell companies, offshore laundering, secondary distribution points. It's fast and profitable, but sloppy, not integrated. She nods. Then that's where we start. I need his financial movements for the last 6 months. Everything he touched that he wasn't supposed to. Dante retrieves a secured tablet and sets it on the table between them. We cut the money, he says. We starve the cancer. Then, quieter, carefully framed. You're not returning to the tower. You stay here. The penthouse is secure. A pause. And I want you where I can see you, so I know my decisions remain clear. Serena studies the tablet. She understands the risk of proximity. She also understands power and the rare advantage of fighting alongside someone who does not flinch from consequence. She lifts her glass slightly, meeting his gaze. Fine, she says, but if I'm here, I'm working. A beat. Give me the data, Dante. Let's find out where Angelo keeps his cash, and how much blood he's already spilled trying to protect it. The terms are set, not as refuge, but as alliance. The penthouse becomes a war room without ceremony. Hours later, Serena is barefoot on the polished hardwood, her charcoal jacket abandoned over the back of a chair. She has claimed one end of the massive dining table, tablets spread wide, secure drives stacked, printed shipping maps weighted down with glasses and paperweights. Her curls are pulled into a loose knot, secured with a pencil she's already used twice to annotate margins. Dante watches from the kitchen island, sleeves still rolled, tie long gone. He moves with quiet efficiency, setting down 2 plates of simple food, grilled fish, vegetables, bread. The domestic normalcy clashes with the screens glowing with money laundering paths and trafficking routes. "You cook?" Serena asks without looking up, fingers moving as she cross-references an offshore account in Cyprus with a warehouse in San Pedro. "My mother would haunt me if I fed a guest takeout," Dante replies. "Eat. You'll think faster." She glances at the plate. "You do realize I'm not one of your soldiers." "No," he says, sitting across from her. "You're the one directing the battlefield." She doesn't smile, but she doesn't deflect either. She slides a document toward him. "Angelo's problem is cash velocity. He's moving too fast. He needs liquidity to pay off rogue factions and buy loyalty before you shut him down." Dante leans in. "Show me." Serena taps the tablet. Overlays bloom, shipping manifests, union payouts, small but steady injections into consulting firms that shouldn't exist. "These 5 shells," she says, circling them in red. "Not yours. They answer to him. They're holding tanks, dirty money from test runs in trafficking and synthetics. He can't bury it all. He needs it visible enough to move." Dante's shoulder nearly brushes hers as he studies the screen. "And if the tanks disappear?" "We don't burn them," she says. "We starve them, freeze transfers, trigger inspections, leak selective intel through proxies. No cash means no muscle. No muscle means panic." He watches her, not the data. "You've done this." "I've dismantled networks. Governments pretended they weren't funding," Serena replies evenly. "Same mechanics, different branding." A beat. "And you?" Dante asks. "Where did you learn to fight like this?" She doesn't hesitate. "South side of Compton. People underestimated me early. They don't anymore." She nods toward the screen. "You're used to enemies who look like you. I'm not." That lands. Dante exhales slowly. "How soon?" "Tonight," she says. "You authorize selective holds. Marco's team conducts routine inspections." She marks the map, precise red X's along the coast. "I'll call Max and have my team feed the right agencies just enough to sniff around. Angelo wakes up bleeding money and scrambling." "And when he scrambles?" Serena finally takes a bite of fish, eyes never leaving the data. "That's when he shows his hand." The room settles into focused silence, the kind that precedes violence. Capo and strategist. Power and precision. Not comfort, not romance. An alliance, forged the only way either of them trusts. Under pressure. The next 48 hours unfold in disciplined succession. From the penthouse, Serena directs the reach of Dante's organization with surgical calm. Marco, still bandaged, still on crutches, runs a secure operations room 2 floors below. His voice steady despite the pain, Silas posted at his shoulder. Winslow Security's encrypted channels run parallel to Aleesi comms, a quiet redundancy built for resilience. At dawn, one of Angelo's consulting firms wakes to frozen accounts. An aggressive compliance review, triggered by an anonymous whistleblower, halts movement mid-transfer. Serena notes the alert as it blooms across her screen. First channel closed. By midday, a warehouse in Long Beach is hit with an unscheduled joint inspection by Port Authority and Customs. Angelo's people scramble to sanitize, but the timing is wrong and the paperwork thinner than they expected. Inspectors find just enough irregularity, undeclared electronics, altered routing, to justify an immediate shutdown. Second channel compromised. Dante moves through the day without spectacle, authorizing internal audits that quietly remove several of Angelo's loyal foremen from sensitive positions. Nothing is announced. Nothing needs to be. The pressure is felt. That evening, Serena stands beside Dante in a lower-level control room, watching a live feed from a warehouse in Vernon. A convoy rolls in, crates labeled laundry equipment and agricultural supplies. She exhales once. There it is! He's escalating! On the ground, Silas leads a vetted team posing as Angelo's logistics crew. They don't seize the shipment. They inventory it. Package Alpha confirmed, Silas reports. Synthetic opioids, high grade, secondary cargo, 5 women, Eastern European, alive. The room tightens. Dante doesn't hesitate. Extract the women, quiet, secure clinic only, no names, no records. Understood. And the product? Serena asks. Dante turns to her. Your call. She answers immediately. Market, subtly. Let a portion continue through his channels. Every distributor becomes traceable. A grim satisfaction crosses Dante's face. We let his greed map the network. Exactly, she says. I dismantle systems, not people. By the end of the second day, Angelo's operation is reeling. Accounts frozen, shipments delayed or tagged, loyalty wavering. What he thought was momentum has become exposure. Serena watches the data stabilize into pattern. Angelo reacts exactly as she knew he would, and in doing so, tightens the noose himself. That night, the strain fractures the controlled distance between them. The city glitters below the penthouse like spilled jewels. Serena stands on the balcony, wrapped in one of Dante's dark cashmere sweaters, over her camisole and leggings, the fabric hanging loose on her smaller frame. The wind lifts her curls. The cool air is sharp relief against the heat of the last 2 days. Dante steps outside, a glass of whiskey in hand. He sets it on the stone ledge beside her, then braces his hands on the railing, close but not touching. Angelo is cornered, he says quietly. 2 of his shells were seized. The Vernon warehouse is under federal review. His people are being squeezed from both sides. He'll be lashing out and soon. I know, Serena answers, watching the traffic far below. Cornered men don't surrender. They escalate. He studies her profile. The city lights illuminate the sharp lines of her cheekbones, the determined set of her mouth. And you? He asks. Where do you go when things escalate, Bella? She smiles faintly. Forward, always forward. He turns to face her fully. I need you out of the line of fire when he makes his play. She finally looks at him, eyes sharp. No. The word lands between them like a shot. Serena! I hear what you're saying, Serena says, not turning, but you need to understand something about where I come from. Dante remains silent. He's learned that silence is sometimes the only respectful move. I grew up in Compton, she continues. Not the version people use as shorthand, the real one, where you learn early that no one is coming to save you, and if they say they are, you check the cost. She finally looks at him. In my neighborhood, men love to say they were protecting you. Fathers, boyfriends, gangs, cops. They'd stand in front of you and call it safety, while quietly deciding where you were allowed to stand, speak, move. Dante's jaw tightens, not in anger, in recognition. I learned fast that protection without agency is just another cage, Serena says. It teaches you to wait, to defer, to survive smaller so someone else can feel bigger. She steps closer now, voice steady, unyielding. That's not me. Dante exhales slowly. I'm not trying to sideline you. I know, she says. That's why I'm telling you this now, before instinct turns into habit. In Compton, independent agency isn't a philosophy, she continues. It's a survival requirement. You don't outsource your decisions. You don't wait to be cleared, and you don't confuse concern with command. Silence stretches, charged but controlled. Dante nods once, the movement deliberate. In my world, he says carefully, men prove loyalty by standing in front of the bullet. And in mine, Serena replies, we survive by knowing when to step out of the line of fire and when to return it. He moves into her space, the air suddenly hot despite the wind. This is not a consulting contract anymore. This is war. And you are not disposable collateral in my war, cara mia. Her chest tightens at the naked protectiveness in his voice, but she refuses to yield. You think I don't know what my body looks like in a blast radius? She asks, voice low, almost gentle. You think I haven't done this dance before, with men who thought protecting me meant caging me? He flinches at the word, cage. I'm not them, he says. Then don't act like them, she replies. You brought me in for my mind. You can't strip me of my agency when it scares you. Silence stretches charged and brittle. His hands curl into fists at his sides. Hers curl into the fabric of his sweater. You scare me, he admits, the confession raw. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to walk into hell and smile at the devil on the way out. I have lost blood, brothers, family to this life. I will not lose you to it. Her breath catches. For a moment, the world narrows to his eyes, dark, tormented, burning with a devotion he doesn't know how to name. Then she steps closer until her body brushes his. You don't own the risk, she says softly. I do. My choice, my terms. His restraint snaps. One hand cups the back of her neck, the other gripping her waist as he pulls her against him, his mouth claiming hers with a fierce, desperate hunger that has nothing to do with control and everything to do with terror and relief and wanting. The kiss is not polite or careful. It is all sharp edges and heat, his lips demanding, hers answering with equal intensity. He tastes of whiskey and anger and something she's tried very hard not to want. Serena's hands find his shoulders, fingers digging into muscle as she kisses him back, matching his urgency, meeting him with her own. There is no submission in it, only a clash of equals, two apex predators finding, to their shock, that they fit. When he finally pulls back, both of them breathing hard, her lipstick smudged, his hair mussed by her hands, the air between them is electric. This is a bad idea, she says, her voice rough. The worst, he agrees instantly. They stand there, foreheads nearly touching, their breath mingling, the city spinning below them. But I am done pretending I don't want you, he adds, softer now. As a woman, not just as a strategist. She swallows hard, fighting for equilibrium. If you want me, she warns, you get all of me. The woman, the strategist, the trained operative, the black woman from Compton who doesn't bow to the rules made by your world. His thumb traces her lower lip, reverent. Then I want all of you, he says. Or I want nothing. I do not do halves. She closes her eyes briefly, then opens them, resolve clicking into place. Then prove it, she says. When Angelo makes his move, we're side by side, yeah? He nods once, the promise anchoring itself in his bones. Side by side, he vows, till this is finished. Angelo makes his move on the third day. At 9:43 p.m., Serena's tablet lights up with a hard alert, an abrupt spike in encrypted traffic between Angelo's burner network and a cluster of numbers flagged as Union leadership. Almost simultaneously, a second report hits, a missing person. "Leverage," Serena says immediately, already moving. She crosses the penthouse war room, fingers flying as she pulls up a map. He's out of cash, so he's paying in fear. Dante turns from the window. "Who?" Silas answers from the command channel, voice steady, authoritative. The man in charge now. "Miguel Alvarez, 16, son of Rodrigo Alvarez, Longshore Union rep. Refused one of Angelo's side deals last quarter." Serena stops cold. The same delegate who sat in the closed-door meeting before the ambush. "Yes," Silas confirms. "SUV tracked to a decommissioned freight terminal near the river. Heat signatures show at least 12 armed men, possibly more inside." Serena exhales once. He's sending a message: cooperate or your children disappear. Dante's jaw tightens. "We move. We extract the boy." "And Angelo will be there," Serena adds. "He needs to see his leverage work. This is theater for him." Dante turns toward the weapons cache. "I'm going in." "So am I." He stops. "No," Dante says flatly. "Absolutely not." Serena doesn't argue from across the room. She steps closer, pulling on a black Kevlar vest, threading it into place with efficient movements that leave no room for doubt. Tactical pants, comms, sidearm. She is not posturing. This isn't escalation. It's deployment. "I'm not staying behind the glass," Serena says evenly. "And I'm not running this from a van. I'm going in." Dante turns fully toward her now. "You're not running point." "I don't need to," she replies. "I operate parallel. Entry support, interior control. I clear paths, disrupt power, manage choke points from inside the structure. I move where the board breaks." The decommissioned freight terminal crouches along the river like something abandoned but not forgotten. Floodlights stutter across cracked concrete, shadows stretching between rusted containers stacked like coffins. The air smells of oil, damp metal, and rot, the kind of place men choose when they think no one is watching. Serena moves fast and quiet, Kevlar fitted close, weapon low. She is not on the perimeter. She is the extraction. Miguel Alvarez stumbles beside her, 16 and terrified, hands shaking as she pulls him through a narrow corridor between containers. "You're doing fine," Serena murmurs, voice steady, unhurried. "Eyes up, match my pace." She feels him start to panic before he speaks. Then the corridor opens, and Angelo steps out of the shadows. 2 men flank him, weapons already raised. Serena moves without hesitation. She pivots, placing herself fully in front of Miguel, her body squared between him and the guns. One hand stays on her weapon, the other presses back, firm and protective, keeping the boy behind her hip. "Stop," Angelo says, amused. "That's far enough." Serena doesn't lift her weapon. She lifts her chin. "Move aside," Angelo continues, eyes flicking to Miguel. "The boy comes with me." "Not gonna happen," Serena replies simply. Silas's voice snaps into Dante's ear a half-second later. "Boss, Angelo has Winslow cornered. She's shielding the kid. 3 hostiles. Weapons up." Dante's first instinct is violent, immediate, absolute. "Move in." "Negative," Silas cuts in, controlled but urgent. "She's holding. If we breach now, the kid dies." Dante clenches his jaw so hard it hurts. "Look at you," he says, circling slowly. "All that training, all that strategy, and now you're just a shield." He leans closer, voice low and cruel. "You're nothing to him," Angelo adds. "You're not blood. You're not family. Step aside." Serena doesn't move. Instead, she shifts her weight, subtle, deliberate, angling her body so her Kevlar fully covers Miguel's torso. "I'm exactly what stops you," she says. Her eyes flick, once, to the overhead lights. Angelo notices too late. Serena slams her palm against the wall-mounted emergency panel behind her. The lights blow out, sprinklers erupt, steam and water explode into the space, alarms screaming. Angelo's men curse, momentarily blinded. Serena moves. She hooks Miguel's collar and throws him sideways into cover behind a container, already moving with him, already firing, not at bodies but at the floor, the lights, the angles. Smoke grenades roll. Confusion blooms. Now, Serena snaps into the comm. Dante doesn't hesitate this time. He comes in hard. The terminal fills with controlled violence. Boots, shouts, gunfire suppressed and precise. Angelo's men go down fast. Serena never looks back. She drags Miguel clear, hands on his shoulders, forcing his eyes up. Run, she orders. Straight, don't stop. Silas will meet you. Miguel bolts. Only when the boy is gone does Serena turn, weapon in hand. Angelo is on his knees. His wrists are zip-tied behind his back, shoulders slick with rain and blood. One of Dante's men forces his head up when it drops, fingers digging into his hair. The warehouse is quiet now, violence contained, weapons lowered, breath settling. Angelo looks at Dante and breaks. "We are blood," he says hoarsely. "You don't do this. Not to me. Not for her." He jerks his chin toward Serena like she's an inconvenience, an object. "She's nothing," Angelo adds desperately. "A hired outsider. I'm your cousin. I belong here." Dante doesn't answer immediately. He steps closer, slow, deliberate, until Angelo has no choice but to look at him. "You misunderstand something fundamental," Dante says calmly. "She's only part of this, Cugino." Angelo's mouth opens. Dante continues. "Not only did you put her life in danger with that bomb, you sold children, you trafficked women, you poisoned the family's name for profit. You tried to burn my house down and hide behind tradition when it failed." Angelo shakes his head wildly. "I was protecting the future." "You were protecting yourself," Dante cuts in, "and you were willing to sacrifice anyone who stood in your way." He pauses. "Blood gives you access," Dante says. "It does not grant immunity." Angelo's breath fractures into something like a sob. Dante straightens and looks at his men. "Take him." Two enforcers move instantly, hauling Angelo to his feet. He struggles, shouting Dante's name once more, raw, panicked, but he's dragged toward the far exit, his voice echoing and then fading. Silence returns. Serena exhales slowly. She turns to Dante, meeting his eyes, not searching for reassurance, not offering judgment. "You didn't rush in," she says quietly. Dante studies her face. "You didn't need saving." She nods once. "Most men would have tried." "I wanted to," he admits. "Every instinct I have told me to." "But you didn't." "No," Dante says. "I trusted you to do what you're trained to do." That matters. She steps closer, not close enough to touch, but close enough that the connection is undeniable. "I appreciate that," Serena says. "More than you know." His mouth curves faintly. "You were impressive," he says. Then, rougher, unguarded. "And I'll be honest, watching you take control like that?" His eyes flick over her with deliberate appreciation. "Kinda hot." She huffs a quiet laugh. "Highly unprofessional." "Extremely," he agrees. He leans in just enough to ask. She closes the distance herself. The kiss is brief, heated, restrained, charged with everything unsaid. When they part, Dante rests his forehead against hers for a heartbeat. "Go," he says softly. "I'll meet you in the car." She doesn't argue. Serena turns and walks away, boots steady on concrete, not looking back. Only when she's gone does Dante move. He follows Angelo's path into the shadowed corridor beyond the floodlights, where blood, history, and final decisions belong. The door closes. Angelo pleads for mercy. Then, a single gunshot echoes. Then nothing. Minutes later, Dante emerges, composed, lethal calm, restored, and heads for the waiting vehicle. The verdict has been rendered. Now come the terms. The ride back to the penthouse is silent. The city slides past the tinted windows in muted streaks of light, Los Angeles distant and indifferent beneath them. Dante sits beside Serena in the rear seat, one arm braced against the door, the other resting still on his thigh. There is blood on his cuff, not his. He hasn't bothered to wipe it away. His calm is unnerving, not rage, not satisfaction, just completion. Is it finished? Serena asks. Dante inclines his head once. Angelo will not touch this family again. He looks at her. The commission will say he went away. No body, no spectacle, just a warning that will circulate where it matters. Relief eases through her, tempered by the cost she knows better than to name. And the boy? Home, Dante says. Alive. His father will never know why. Only that someone chose his son over money. She exhales, leaning back, eyes closing for a brief moment. Then we did what we came to do. Dante studies her, the weight in his gaze no longer tactical, no longer contained by strategy alone. We ended a threat, he says quietly. Winning is something we'll measure later. The SUV continues toward the penthouse, carrying them forward, out of immediate violence, but deeper into consequence. Back in the penthouse, the war room is gone. The screens are dark. The table is bare. The city beyond the glass glows softer now, the violence of the terminal already receding into something unreal, like a fever finally breaking. Serena stands at the window, arms folded loosely across her chest. Exhaustion sits heavy in her bones, but sleep is a distant idea. Adrenaline always exacts its price later. Dante joins her, close enough that she can feel the heat of him. He smells clean now, soap, faint cologne, but the metallic echo of recent violence still clings beneath it. The council accepted your verdict? She asks. They accepted the evidence, he replies. Your work and my resolve. Together it was persuasive. So you cleaned house. I started to, he says. You showed me where the rot had spread. I'll spend months cutting it out, years reinforcing what should never have weakened. She turns, studying him fully, the man who refused to traffic in flesh and powder, who chose restraint in a world that rewarded excess, who paid for conscience with blood. You could have taken Angelo's networks, she says, folded them into your operation, made more money than you'd ever need. I thought about it, he admits quietly. Then I remembered my father dying in prison for choices he made when he believed there was no other way. He meets her gaze. I spent 20 years building something that would never require a boy in a chair or a woman in a container. If I become Angelo to win, I lose everything that mattered in the first place. Something in her chest loosens, just enough to hurt. This world doesn't reward men like you, she says softly. Not at your level. Then we build the world we need, he answers, brick by brick. His hand brushes the back of her fingers, hesitant, uncharacteristically careful. She searches his face. Where do I fit into that? At my side, he says without pause. Not behind me, not in front of me, beside me. As my strategist, as my partner. Her breath tightens. You understand what that means. I do. A black woman at your table, she continues. In your bed. In photographs people will dissect. Your old guard won't accept that quietly. A slow, dangerous smile curves his mouth. Then they'll learn to accept it loudly. I don't build my future around the comfort of men too afraid to acknowledge the woman who saved their lives. Her pulse stutters. And yours. Mine most of all, he agrees. The silence that follows isn't fragile. It's full of risk, of intent, of something neither of them has allowed themselves in a long time. She looks down at their hands, the contrast stark, undeniable, a visual promise and a warning all at once. This doesn't work if you try to cage me, she says quietly. I keep my company. I keep my name. Winslow's security doesn't belong to you. Agreed, he says instantly. You keep your empire. I keep mine. Where they intersect, we negotiate. And if we disagree? Then we argue, he says, amused. In multiple languages, and we compromise. Or, his eyes darken, we find more inventive solutions. Heat coils low in her stomach. Dante. Serena. He lifts her hand, pressing a slow, deliberate kiss to her knuckles, measured, reverent, binding in a way no contract could ever be. She could walk away. She could turn this into a clean exit, a finished job, another line item in a career built on distance and control. Instead, she steps closer, her free hand sliding up his chest to rest over his heart. I stay, she says, voice low, certain. For tonight. Relief and hunger flash through his eyes. And tomorrow? He asks. She leans in, lips brushing his, the promise suspended between them like a live wire. Tomorrow, she whispers, we negotiate. Their kiss deepens, not frantic, not desperate, chosen, dangerous in its intention. Outside, the city keeps breathing, unaware that in a glass tower above its lights, a black woman who carved her power from discipline and a Sicilian king who refused corruption are rewriting the terms of alliance, one decision, one boundary, one shared future at a time. This is just the beginning of Dante and Serena's journey. Two predators, one battlefield, no safe ground. Join us each week on stories of silk and steel as strategy, danger, and desire collide, and discover how far they're willing to go when love becomes a weapon.
Thank you for listening to today's story, where strong men and strong women meet in a world rich with culture, courage, and connection. These stories remind us that love is limitless, that strength comes in many forms, and that every race, every age, and every gender has a place in powerful storytelling. If this journey moved you, inspired you, or made you think a little differently, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who believes in love without boundaries. Join us next time as we explore more characters who challenge expectations, break barriers, and discover that the heart has no labels. Until then, stay open, stay inspired, and keep celebrating every shade of humanity. See you in the next story.